Okay, so now we're going to concentrate on the quadratic formula, something you have seen before. So it's kind of more a little bit of a review. So the quadratic formula.
Yes, you do need to memorize the formula.
So we have negative b plus minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that needs to be memorized. It's a way to solve a quadratic when something's not factorable is typically what I say. So I always try to factor first and use the zero product property. And if not, then I use the quadratic formula. If it says to use the quadratic formula, then you also need to make sure you use the quadratic formula. So as we take a look here, first we're going to identify what A, B, and C is. I'll do this the first time, but then typically students remember. So A is in front of the x squared, the 2. B is the coefficient in front of the x, which is a 4. And C is the constant, which is negative 5. So A, x squared, the B term is with the x, the C is the constant with no variable. Then you're just going to plug it into the formula. So x equals negative B, which is 4. Plus minus the square root, everything is under it. The next part is b squared. You want to make sure you put b in parentheses because when you square a positive or a negative, it should be a positive number. If you forget the parentheses, then type it in your calculator, it will tell you a negative number, but it should always be positive. So b squared minus 4, a is 2, c is negative 5. All divided by 2a, 2 times 2. Personally, for me, so I don't make any errors, I just type in everything underneath the square root sign. So I type in 4 squared, again, in parentheses, exactly how I have it written, minus 4 times 2 times negative 5, exactly how I have it written, and it's 56. So my next step is I would write negative 4 plus minus the square root 56 all over 4. You do have to simplify as needed. 56 can be simplified. 56 is divisible by 4 times 14. And we know the square root of 4 is really 2. So we can simplify that radical to 2 root 14, all divided by 4. When I say all divided, that means both parts are being divided by 4. So that means I need to divide the coefficients by 4. So when I look, there's a couple ways to do that. I noticed that negative 4, 2, and 4, that everything can be divided by 2 to simplify. So if I divide all of those parts by 2, so I could say x equals negative 2 plus minus root 14, all divided by 2. That would be one way to write it. Some students like to separate the divided by 2, so they would from here say, okay, negative 4 over 4 plus minus 2 root 14 over 4, because again, both parts are being divided by 4. Negative 4 over 4 is negative 1. 2 over 4 is a half, which would leave your answer like this. Typically, you're going to see me put it like this, but you could also have the other answer. They are the same thing. Okay. Now, when we take a look at number 2, it's a quadratic. You've got an x squared, but it's not equal to 0. So just like the zero product property, when you're factoring, you need to make sure it's equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides and reorder it. So negative 3x squared goes first. Then I subtracted 2x and then plus 9. That just helps me keep track of what A, B, and C is. So A is negative 3, B is negative 2, C is positive 9. You don't have to write A, B, and C out. I'm just doing it because I want your notes to have all the details. So x equals negative B. So negative 2 is positive 2. Plus minus the square root. B squared, negative 2 squared in parentheses because it becomes a positive 4. Again, if you don't use the parentheses and you type in your calculator, it will say negative 4. You need to have the parentheses around negative 2 because all of negative 2 is being squared. Minus 4 times A times C. All divided by 2A. 2 times negative 3. Again, I like to type in this entire part in my calculator exactly how I have it written. Not with the square root, everything under the square root with those parentheses exactly like that. Then I know I'm not going to make any silly multiplying errors or anything like that. And it gets me to 112. That's the number inside the radical. And the denominator is -6. 112 can be divided by the largest perfect square. I'm trying 16. 16 does work. So I'm going to break this up into the square root of 16 and the square root of 7. We know the square root of 16 is really 4. So I'm going to simplify that one more time. That'll give me 4 square root 7, all divided by -6. Again, 2, 4, and -6 can all be simplified. I can divide them all by 2 again. Which gives me 1. 2 divided by 2, don't have it go away. That's a 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. -6 divided by 2 is -3. Be aware that you can get a negative number inside the radical. If that happens, don't forget to pull out your I and make it an I here. That can happen. But again, we did not have a negative number in the radicals, positive 112. But if you had a negative 112, you would have to pull out the I. So still remembering all your different rules. Okay. So now all the methods to solve quadratics you have now learned. We've learned about the factoring and zero product property. I always try that one first. We learned about how to solve square roots. That's just when you have an x squared term. We have now practiced the quadratic formula, and the other class we did completing the square. Those are our 4 methods to solving quadratics.